Sin lieth at the door. And Adam knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from Yahweh. And she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Yahweh, and Abel he also brought of the firstlings of his flock, and of the fat thereof. And Yahweh had respect unto Abel and to his offering, but unto Cain and unto his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And Yahweh said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 to 7. It has been argued that the reason why Yahweh did not accept the offering of Cain was because he did not bring a meat or blood offering. But I have another perspective on this, because nowhere does it say that Yahweh didn't want the offering of Cain. He said it wasn't accepted, and they had brought him their produce. We also know that from the beginning of time Yahweh gave the land unto Adam to have dominion over it, and told him by the sweat of his brow he would eat bread. So the assumption that because Cain brought of the ground that it was not an acceptable offering unto Yahweh does not seem correct to me. In fact, it was not a sacrifice that they brought. They were giving their first fruits unto Yahweh. Another thing hits me when it comes to this story is the phrase, sin lieth at the door. And we must ask ourselves, rather than complicating things and putting conjecture on what we read in the Bible, what is the sin that lieth at the door? Well, it says in another place that whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is a transgression of the law. 1 John chapter 3 verse 4. John chapter 10 verse 9 also says, I am the door. By me if any man enter in, he shall be saved and go in and out and find pasture. So we see that the sin that Cain had committed was a transgression of the law. By inference, it also means that Yahweh had given his people the law. They knew there was a law. There was some kind of covenant, and there was a commandment to be kept. There was also a moral law. Hence, they brought their first fruits unto Yahweh. But you see, Yahweh will not accept our offerings, or even our sacrifice, or even our prayers, if sin is within us. I remember a friend of my mother telling me that her brother, when he was a little boy, used to hear people praying, and his remark was, their prayers aren't going past the ceiling. Many times we want to go unto Yahweh without having a right heart, without making things right with others, and that is not acceptable unto Yahweh. We know that he tells us that Zion is a holy place, and sin cannot enter there, and he's a holy Elohim. So he cannot accept offerings that don't come from a pure and clean heart. And I believe this was the sin of Cain. There was something in his heart. He had transgressed the commandments of Yahweh. His heart was not right before Yahweh. Let us look into the New Testament and see what our Messiah actually said about the commandments. But when the Pharisees had heard that he had put the Sadducees to silence, they were gathered together. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him, and saying, Master, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Yahushua said unto him, Thou shalt love Yahweh thy Elohim with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself. Matthew chapter 22, verses 34 to 39. So I believe, in the case of Cain, this was the sin that he had committed. He did not love Yahweh with all his heart, with all his soul, and with all his mind. Neither did Cain love his brother. There must have been some kind of envy or enmity and strife between this elder sibling and his younger. And yet he wanted to go to the father and present his offering. I put this case because the ultimate conclusion was Cain killing his brother. Not only does he kill him, but he seems to have a very cavalier attitude about it and doesn't want to be questioned about it. When Yahweh banishes Cain from his presence, Cain's only concern is what is going to happen to him. At no point in the story do we hear of Cain expressing remorse or regret for the killing of his own brother, whose blood the earth did not want to receive. I think it is also worth noting at this point that Yahweh was aware of the strife or the sin of Cain. Yet he did not ask that Abel do anything to repair the sin or strife, because the heart of Abel was pure. He required a recompense and reparation to be made by Cain, because he told him he must have mastery. He must master that sin which laid at his door. This is reflected in the following scripture which the Messiah spoke. Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. Matthew chapter 5, verses 23 to 24. The state of Cain's heart was not the responsibility of Abel, who most likely had cause to have something against the bitter Cain, as it is reasonable to believe that any antagonism was festering for some time, and so Yahweh accepted Abel's offering. Let's now consider the concept of the door. John chapter 10 verse 9 says, I am the door. By me if any man enters in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. James chapter 5 verse 9 says, Grudge not one against another, brethren, lest ye be condemned. Behold, the judge standing before the door. Notice the warning against grudging. Revelation chapter 3 verse 8, I know thy works, behold, I set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it. For thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. And finally, Revelation chapter 3 verse 20, Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice, and open the door, I will come in unto him, and will sup with him, and he with me. So we see the right of entry unto the Father is by the door, the right way. The door also represents not only the entrance unto the Father, but also the entrance into our hearts, because he said he will knock on the door and he will come in if we open up unto him. Cain had already closed his heart unto the Father. He had also closed his heart unto loving his brother, because obviously there was grudge and envy, or else he would not have slain him. So many times we look at scripture and we come to conclusions that may be outside the scope of it and overlay our own interpretation. However, I believe in this instance, what the Father was showing us early on and later enacted through his Son while on earth was the first commandment and the greatest one. That is, to love him with all our hearts, with all our minds, and with all our being, and with all our soul. And after that, we will be able to love our brother.